Deshikavaram satatam namami Panchakopadrubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dave Madhaprabhu, is it okay with you if I live stream this on Facebook at the same time?
I'm trying to figure out how to do that myself, so you're ahead of the game.
Well, I can do it. I already started it. And if you say...
Okay, great. Yeah,
so
thank you.
Say,
I'm just going to go to your page then and stream it to our Harmony Collective page. That'll save you.
I was going to say that if you don't like it, then everybody's just going to hate you forever and ever, but don't feel pressurized. So I'm going to... Can you hear me okay right now, Dave Madhav? Is that all right?
Yes, I can. It's a little soft, but I think everybody can just turn their volume up, no problem. We can hear you well.
I'm unplugging this mic because if I plug it in, then I can't hear you.
Uh-huh.
What was that? So I wanted to read something from Bhagavad Gita. And some interesting things happened to me today, and there's a lot of things going on in the world today. And I wanted to speak a little something amongst our friends. Actually, the topic I wanted to speak about today, for anybody who's just coming in on Facebook, we're speaking to our friends in Ypsilanti, Michigan. That's a strange name for a town with a strange name in Michigan. And some wonderful devotees. They're one of our favorite communities. And really, that's one of the things I get the most inspired about the community there. And I don't think that everybody, you may not always agree with us that you have such a wonderful community. You may have problems and whatever, but everybody does. But you have a very good community there. And I've been meditating something about America, seeing the news lately. I'm sure all of you have been seeing some of that. And I had some thoughts that I wanted to share, also in line with some things going on with me. So this is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 12, text 16. Krishna says to Arjuna, Anapeksha suchir daksha udasino gata vyata sarva ramba parityagi yomad bhakta same priya. My devotee who's not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. So I'm going to go ahead and just paste in the Srila Prabhupada's purport. And Dave Madhaprabhu, I'm going to put this in the chat. Would you like to read this? Oops, I'm trying to paste it in. Let's see what's going on here. There you go. I've been really having some computer problems. It looks like it's still continuing. All right. Okay, I'll read it. Money may be offered to a devotee, but he should not struggle to acquire it. If automatically, by the grace of the Supreme, money comes to him, he's not agitated. So the first thing Prabhupada's speaking about here in the purport, the verse is speaking about, Prabhupada's translation is that a devotee who's not dependent on the ordinary cares of activities, who's pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, not striving for some result, is very dear to me. So the first thing Prabhupada speaks about in the purport is that money may be offered to a devotee, but he shouldn't struggle to acquire it. And if automatically it comes to him by the grace of the Lord, he's not agitated. Prabhupada says, in speaking about suchi, about pure, naturally a devotee takes a bath at least twice in a day and rises early in the morning for devotional service. Thus he is naturally clean both inwardly and outwardly. A devotee is always expert because he fully knows the essence of all activities of life and he's convinced of the authoritative scriptures. And then my favorite sentence in the purport, a devotee never takes the part of a particular party. Therefore he's carefree. He's never pained because he's free from all designations. He knows that his body is a designation. So if there are some bodily pains, he's free. The pure devotee does not endeavor for anything which is against the principles of devotional service. For example, constructing a big building requires great energy. And a devotee does not take to such business if it does not benefit him by advancing his devotional service. He may construct a temple for the Lord, and for that he may take all kinds of anxiety, but he does not construct a big house for his personal relations. So, I was thinking a lot about this today, and what's going on in the world today, as Dave Madhav Prabhu commented to me recently, that this is a time of judgment. When we say time of judgment, generally we're thinking of Judeo-Christian kind of thing, that this is a real heavy time. And indeed it is. What we're seeing in America now, I just saw something on there's 20 different cities in America where they're locking things down because of the riots, not protests, but actually riots going on, buildings burning and burning police cars and burning police stations and killing police, and they're bringing the army in, and then we've got the coronavirus going on, everything's locked down and we can't work, and we don't know what's going to happen with the economy, we don't know what's going to happen with the politics, and we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe there's going to be wars, maybe there's going to be starvation, and then on top of all that you have locusts, you have these insects attacking all over in Africa and also in India, and it's just a huge kind of plague. So it's natural to become an anxiety this time, but for a devotee is detached. As Krishna says here, my devotee who's not dependent on the ordinary course of activities is very dear to me. But when we're dependent on the ordinary course of activities, then we become agitated. And we start thinking there's some kind of conspiracy, and maybe it's a Jewish conspiracy with Mr. Trump, and maybe even Dave Madhav's part of it, and there's some big conspiracy to cheat everybody throughout the world. And I don't know. People come to me with these things all the time. And I tell them, I really don't care. I don't care if the wind is blowing because there's global warming, if the wind is blowing because there's a conspiracy, a group of a bunch of mad scientists who built some huge windmills off the coast. All I know is there's a breeze and I want to put on a jacket. So I want to be simple, and I see right now this is a time to do bhajan and get our head in an inward way. When we can't go outside, then we have to go inside. From our next bindu, which I'm just working on now, we're about to send off tomorrow, there's a nice article from Srila Prabhupada, which I'd really like to paste in. I don't know why it's not working tonight. Usually we've been doing a lot of Zooms. There it is. Okay, so Dave Madhav, now you get your chance to read. This is from Srila Prabhupada. Please.
Instead of contemplating what will happen to this world, you have got a short duration of life, say 50, 60 years. You should chant Hare Krishna and go back to home, back to Godhead. Don't consider what will happen to this world. Nature will take care of it. Don't puzzle your brain with these thoughts. You should utilize whatever time you have in your possession and go back to home, back to Godhead. You cannot check it. The best thing is that you mold your life and go back to home, back to Godhead. Oil your own machine. Instead of thinking, what will happen elsewhere? Those things will happen because people will go on with their rascal civilization. Natural consequences will be there. Better you take advantage of whatever time you have got, become fully Krishna conscious, and go back to home.
So that was from a morning walk Prabhupada was on the 21st of February 1975 in Caracas. So when we start seeing things other than Krishna, the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam describes bhayam vitya binivesita shat, that when I see something separate from Krishna, then I become full of anxiety. I see duality. And then right away, there's people thinking so many crazy things. I remember I'd heard, I was a young boy at the time, but in 1968, there were riots going on in Los Angeles, race riots. And I have a redneck uncle who was telling the families, yeah, I'm ready to get my gun. I'm going to LA and I'm going to shoot me some niggers. Excuse my language. Hare Krishna. That's what some people think. And that's unfortunately what some people are still thinking today. And even it becomes very disturbing to me and very sad to me when devotees think like this too. When the devotees see some other source, other cause of things other than Krishna. And when we see some other cause other than Krishna for things, then Prabhupada says a devotee never takes a part of a particular party, therefore he's carefree. So in other words, if we take the part of a particular party, if we decide that I like the conservatives in America and Mr. Trump's doing a great job, then we're going to be in anxiety because some people don't like him. Or on the other hand, if you don't like Mr. Trump, maybe you'll be in anxiety because some people do like him. But what is it got to do with devotees? Why should we take the part of a particular party? Rather, we just want to take shelter of the holy name. And that's everything. Bhaktivinode Thakur, he says, Nama bina kichu nahi kora choda bhuvana maji. That the only thing in all the three worlds is the holy name. And my favorite quote, Srila Prabhupada, he said that this chanting should go on. Instead of meetings, resolutions, dissolutions, revolutions, and no solutions, there should be chanting. That's our solution. And we should think deeply in these days, am I taking shelter of Krishna consciousness? And if I'm not taking shelter of Krishna consciousness in a deep way, I'm going to be in big time anxiety. So one result will be that if I'm not taking shelter of Krishna, then I'm going to start taking the part of a particular party. And I'm going to think this party's good. All the devotees in Ypsilanti, they're really good. All the disciples of Jayapataka Maharaj are really good. All the American devotees are really good. All the ISKCON devotees are really good. All the white people, all the brown people, all the this people or that people are very good. We'll find some particular party. And we're not going to be carefree. We're going to be full of anxiety. So tonight I'd like to speak something about the sectarianism and the chanting of the holy names and how devotees were living in this world and were burning in the fire of sectarianism. America today is on fire. If you go to CNN or any of the news outlets, you'll see the cities are burning all over America. And people are furious. And it's not a small time thing. They're saying in Minnesota it's the first time in 160 years or something that they've called out the National Guard. And Mr. Trump is talking about calling out the Army also. And people are so very, very disturbed. And naturally it causes a lot of anxiety and suffering. When we hear about people who have been killed, we hear about cities burning and people suffering and anxiety, and we all want to do something about it. And everybody's offering some help. But I've been thinking about the situation in America, and I have zero hope. Zero hope. I don't think Mr. Trump is going to be able to do a damn thing to help solve the problem. I don't think the Army or the National Guard is going to help whatsoever. I don't think that Black Lives Matter is going to solve the problem. I don't think any of those people are going to be able to solve the problem. I only see one hope for America and for the whole world today, which is beginning to burn in this fire of sectarianism, and that hope is Krishna consciousness. And devotees, I want to encourage everybody to think very deeply about this, not in a sectarian way that we're saying is that, oh, Krishna consciousness is the best because I'm a Krishna conscious devotee, but because we really need something which is actually going to work and make people think. We need to give introspection to people, not just information. All over the world, everybody's giving information, and the politicians are expert at giving information, and they just twist it in whatever way so they get votes and things. But no one is encouraging people to become introspective, to become thoughtful. And that's such an important thing. And this is the business of the devotees. Not that we should start blaming everybody else and everything else for the problems that go on. If we do that, then we're going to be in so much anxiety. And such a person is not so dear to Krishna, but my devotee who's not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, Krishna says, is very dear to me. So there's a beautiful verse written by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Madhya Lila chapter 2, where he speaks about his qualification for writing. Nahi kahan saviroda, nahi kahan haruda, Sahavastu kori vivaram. Jadi hoy ragadesh tahan hoy avesh, sahaja vastu na jai likan. He says in this Chaitanya Charitamrita, I'll go ahead and just paste in the translation here. Jai Gaur, are you alive there? Would you like to read this?
I'm alive. In this Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is no contradictory conclusion, nor is anyone else's opinion accepted. I have written this book to describe the simple substance as I have heard it from superiors. If I become involved in someone's likes and dislikes, I cannot possibly write the simple truth.
So this is our purpose. And we have to always remember, our purpose is here to give the simple truth. And while sometimes in our Krishna conscious movement even, there's sectarianism, and devotees become disturbed about that, we should understand that's going to be a natural thing for neophytes. Bhaktivinode Thakur speaks about that in Krishna Samhita in his introduction. And how about Nandini Tulsi? Would you like to read something? You alive? This is from Bhaktivinode Thakur, Sectarianism.
Okay, cool.
You okay?
Yes, we're doing well.
Nice to see you. Mataji Hare Krishna.
Sectarianism is a natural byproduct of the absolute truth. When ācāryas first ascertain and instruct the truth, it is not polluted with sectarianism, but the rules and regulations received through disciplic succession regarding the goal and the method of achieving it are changed in due course of time according to the mentality and locale of the people. A rule that is followed by one society is not necessarily accepted in another society. That is why one community is different from another. As a community gradually develops more respect for its own standards, it develops hatred towards other communities and considers their standard inferior. These sectarian symptoms are seen in all countries since time immemorial. This is prominent amongst neophytes.
And this is what's going on in America today, isn't it? People have very, very strong feelings. And, some people, they're very concerned that we should love each other and we should be very inclusive. And other people are very concerned about moral behavior and tradition. And they give labels to themselves. And one group calls themselves progressives and another group calls themselves conservatives. But these are just symptoms of neophytes. Some people, they need this kind of thing. But as Bhaktivinode Thakur says, sectarianism is a natural byproduct of the absolute truth. It's always going to be there, but it's not a very beautiful thing. Let's see here. Uma, would you like to read something? Yeah, okay, I'm just pasting in. This is from Chaitanya Siksamrita from Bhaktivinode Thakur. To be controlled.
To be controlled by prejudice causes many problems. From prejudice arises partiality. From partiality comes disrespect for truth. Wearing the signs of the Vaishnav is one of the methods of cultivating devotion involving the body. But to think that is the distinguishing characteristic of a Vaishnav is a prejudice arising from sectarianism. Controlled by such false beliefs, a person may not respect a real Vaishnav who is not wearing those marks. If a devotee has such prejudice and he cannot find good association within his own organization, he will not venture to find good association elsewhere. Since nothing can be accomplished without good association, such a devotee falls into a dangerous position. Those who are bound to the varnashram system by prejudice also fail to develop a taste for a higher level of bhakti. Sometimes hatred, which degrades a person even more, may also appear.
So this is a problem in the world today. And I'll just be very straightforward. It's a problem not only in America and the cities, but it's also even a problem in our own society of ISKCON. And some devotees, they're developing this kind of prejudice that our group is good and this other group is not good. And this is a great, great disturbance in bhakti. I'd like to speak a little something about this tonight. Let's read another statement from from Bhaktivinode Thakur. Let's see, this is from Sri Chaitanya, his life and precepts. And Uma, why don't you read this also? It's just really short. Sri Chaitanya's life and precepts.
Sri Chaitanya, okay.
That's from that book.
Mahaprabhu was naturally a soft-hearted person, though strong in his principles. He declared that party spirit and sectarianism were the two great enemies of progress.
So this becomes a little confusing, perhaps, how we can both be faithful to Srila Prabhupada's Seva Sangha, be faithful to the Seva Sangha of our Guru Maharaj, be faithful to our own community. You guys have a beautiful community in Ypsilanti. A community, as we were speaking when we were there last, means common unity. It means some unity. It means there's some, we have some declaration that I'm going to stay with you. We have a marriage. You know, I'm going to stay married to this person. I'm going to make a vow. And community is like that also, when we have a group of people who are dedicated to each other. So how do we have dedication without sectarianism? I'd like to discuss a little something at this point also from Bhaktivinode Thakur, who Srila Prabhupada considered to be his favorite author. This is from Chaitanya Siksamrita. And this is, I'm going to read some of the Bengali, which I don't have a soft copy for everybody, so I'm just going to read this to myself. This is, Bhaktivinode describes in the 6th chapter, 6th wave of that book, about Naimitika Leela. And the 11th Naimitika Leela means pastimes which are occasional pastimes, which Bhaktivinode says indicate different obstacles in devotion and our pathway to Braj. So the 11th obstacle is Davagni Nasa, or the forest fire. And Bhaktivinode Thakur uses the following language to explain this. And this language is brilliant. It's Bengali, please excuse me. I don't read Bengali so well. I understand a little bit, but it's very nice for a discussion to try to go deep into this. And it's very helpful for devotees in our community to cultivate introspection, to cultivate reflection. And so that comes when we think more deeply about things. So Bhaktivinode describes, what is this Davagni Nasa? He says, Parasparavada, Sampradaya Vidvesha, Adya Vedarira Vidvesha, Yuda Ityadi, Sangharshama, Tridavanala. Paraspara is a word which I use quite often. It's both a Sanskrit and Bengali word. There's a famous verse I quote quite often, 11th canto, Parasparanu Katanam Pavanam Bhagavadyasa. Paraspara there means some back and forth amongst persons. But here it has a little different connotation. Bhaktivinode says Paraspara Vada. Vada has several different meanings. We'll give 4 different meanings here. One is just general speech or discussion. A second meaning is to speak about someone else, or just to speak in general. The third meaning is argument or doctrine, controversy, like that. And a fourth meaning is to expand on Shastra. So this Paraspara Vad can refer to something either positive, can be Shastra-kata, or it can be negative. And it's interesting how Bhaktivinode has described this. And he's speaking about something which is negative, about the forest fire. And Bhaktivinode says that this forest fire is Sampradaya Vidvesh, or hating people from another Sampradaya. He uses the word Vidvesh several times. Hating other different people. It means different, quarreling with other different groups of people. So Bhaktivinode says that any type of conflict, such as argument or disagreement with other sampradayas, being angry, malice to the devatas, or fighting in general, represented by the forest fire. So I was thinking about this today, that America's burning. And this burning is very symptomatic of what Bhaktivinode Thakur is speaking about here in Chaitanya Siksamrita. It's a manifestation of different groups of people, and they're so vexed and they're so fighting and they just can't see. There are people who just hate Mr. Trump, and there are people who just hate the liberals, and all the liberals should just die, and this and that, and all glories to America, whatever that means. Bhaktivinode describes it again, Davanalapan, the 13th obstacle in devotion. There's two different forest fires. One is number 11, and the other is number 13. So we're going to kind of mix what he says about both of them because they're very similar. Number 13, he says, Davanalapan, Naistikya Vedaravar, Dharma Udharmikera Upadrava Tva Dvajan. That obstacles that atheists create against Dharma and the preachers of Dharma. This is what Bhaktivinode describes as the Davagnipan, or Krishna swallowing the forest fire. So this represents sectarianism, and it represents useless quarrel. And the forest fire, what happens in this forest fire? In the 17th chapter of the 10th canto, it's described the first fire, which took place right after Kaliyadamana Leela. And it's described in text 19, Yashodapi Mahabhaga Nashtalabda Prajasati Parishya Jankam Aropya Mumukashru Kalam Mahu. That Mother Yashoda began to cry a torrent of tears because she'd lost her son, and then she regained him. And she put that boy on her lap, and she began to cry and cry and cry. So the beginning of this Davagnipan Leela begins with union. Right after the Kaliyadamana Leela, Mother Yashoda, she was afraid, she was terrified she was going to lose Krishna. And then they're united, and Mother Yashoda is just embracing him and crying and crying and crying. But then our ācāryas describe that after Krishna defeated Kaliya and revived all the Brijbasi residents who were standing there on the bank of the Jamuna, that everyone realized that all of a sudden it's getting dark, and it's too late to take the cows back home at night. We can't, they may wander off in the forest in the dark. And so they all decided we're going to just stay here on the bank of the Jamuna. And everybody was very, very exhausted, very weak from hunger, thirst, and fatigue. They were in so much anxiety before. And Kavi Karnapur in Ananda Vrindavan Champu says that they made circles around Krishna. And the inner circle was with Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda. And then the next circle, as I recall, it was the young girls of Vrindavan. And then it was their parents. And then they had some of the men. And then they had the guards on the outside. And they had the cows. And they had the cows and they had the guards on the outside of the cows. And everyone was so overjoyed with Krishna that Krishna had been saved now. That everybody was looking to Krishna's face. And finally, everyone fell asleep. And then Radha and Krishna were exchanging glances. And the gopis were speaking amongst themselves. There were a few personalities who were still awake. But Kamsa, Jiva Goswami says in Gopal Champu, Kamsa had heard about the defeat of Kaliya from his spies. And so Kamsa sent there one of his followers to light a fire. Now, there's a lot of symbolism again in this, which also applies in the world today, and may even unfortunately apply in our own society if we're not fully Krishna conscious. Kamsa, according to Bhaktivinode Thakur, it represents the head of mundane religion. And Kaliya represents malice and fault finding. So that malice and fault finding destroys everything. It poisons the river, the Jamuna. And the Jamuna is the life force of everyone in Braj. So although Krishna gave mercy to Kaliya, he danced and put his feet on Kaliya's head, and Kaliya became a great devotee, still Krishna sent him out. And Bhaktivinode Thakur explains that Krishna drove Kaliya out because Kaliya hadn't taken shelter of any of the Brijbasis. And if we want to stay in Braj, if we want a position in Braj, we have to take shelter of one of the bridge bosses. So when Kamsa sees that his chela, his man Kaliya, wasn't able to bring about the death of Krishna, then he sent this forest fire there. Sanatana Goswami and Brihad Vaishnava Toshini and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Sartha Vaishni, they described something a little different, that perhaps the fire was a loyal friend of Kaliya's who had taken that form. And they say, or maybe it was a friend of Kamsa's who came there. In any case, Kavi Karnapur and Nanda Vrindavan Champu says that that fire burned all the dry trees in its path. So that's the nature of the fire of useless quarrel and sectarianism. It burns all the trees of our lives that are dry with no bhajan. And all those trees of our life, they're dry because they've been killed dead by the poison of Kaliya. Kaliya, again, represents malice and fault finding. And so when we're not doing bhajan, when we're not shravanam, kirtanam, jali, pouring the water of bhajan on the tree of our life, then those trees become dried up. And all the trees around Kaliya Damana, that lake, that Kaliya Hrada, all the trees around Kaliya Hrada, they were all dried up and died from the poison of Kaliya. And so this is the nature of the fire of useless quarrel and sectarianism. It burns all the trees and all the lives that are very dry with no bhajan. But when we absorb ourselves in bhajan, when we absorb ourselves in Krishna consciousness, which is the only solution for all the problems, those trees, they stay alive. So Jiva Goswami says that the gopis, suddenly they saw the fire coming and they warned everyone. And there's a wonderful book called Vrindavan Nilamrita by Nanda Kishore Goswami. I'm going to sing a little something from it. Let me hook up my microphone here. You'll be able to hear me better, I think, with this microphone, but I'm not been using it because I have to plug it into my audio jack. And as soon as I plug it in, I just did, you'll be able to hear it, but now I can't hear any of you. So anyway, this book, Vrindavan Nilamrita, was written by a devotee in the line of Nityananda Prabhu. His name was Nanda Kishore Goswami. He wrote it about 200 years ago. He was the Mahant at Nityananda Vat on the bank of the Jamuna. And it's said that he wrote this book after having some Lila Spurti of Krishna. It said that Nanda Kishore Goswami was a grand disciple, something of Baladi Vidyabhushan. He's in our line. So Nanda Kishore Goswami describes Krishna Raksha Hetu Nanda Vragra Hoya Ati Snehi Paripurnaman Kande Yasomati. That Nanda Maharaj became full of anxiety to save Krishna. And Mother Yashoda, who is Sneha Paripurna, she's just completely full of love. She, Mana Kande Yasomati, she began to cry out of fear for her son. This was their reaction to this forest fire. And at that time, Mother Yashoda began to pray to Lord Narayan. She said, Narayana Stane Rani Koraye Pratana Rakshakoro Prabhu Krishna Braja Pranadhana. She said, oh dear Lord Narayan, please save my Krishna, who is the life of Braj. Krishna Braja Pranadhana. Because Mother Yashoda, she doesn't think that her Krishna is Bhagavan. Sometimes the boys, they come back at the end of the day from herding the cows, and they tell Mother Yashoda, Yashoda Rani, it was an amazing thing today. We were going, and Krishna killed some demons, and then as we were going along, we saw this amazing thing up in the air. There was some fellow who was riding on a bull, and he had 5 heads. And there was another fellow who was riding on a great elephant. I don't know how the elephant was up in the sky, but he was on this elephant, and that guy had eyes all over his body. And there was someone else who was riding on a swan who had 4 heads. And in this way, they began to describe all the different demigods. And they said, it was amazing, Mother Yashoda. All these great personalities, they were there, and they all started throwing showers of flowers on Krishna. And they were saying that Krishna was Bhagavan. And when Mother Yashoda heard that, she said, really? My Gopal is Bhagavan? And she said, isn't that sweet? That's Mother Yashoda's attitude. But then very, very quickly, she forgets again that Krishna is being addressed as Bhagavan by all those different demigods. Mother Yashoda began to pray to Lord Narayan. She said, Mosabhara prana joka tate nahi bhai Krishna prati jena kona vyahitina hoy. She said, let all of us die. We don't care. But don't let anything happen to Krishna. And so then at that time, all the Brijbasis, they took shelter of Krishna. They began to call out to Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Mahabhaga, Parama Karuna, Amita Vikrama Bala Ramachandra Suna. Hey Krishna, Krishna Mahabhaga, oh very greatly fortunate Krishna, you're Parama Karuna, you're so merciful, Amita Vikrama, you have unlimited power, you and Balaram, Suna, you please listen to us. And they told him, Brajabasi Matra, all that we are is Brajabasis, that's all that we know. Saba Amar Tomar. And all we know is all of us belong to you. Gora Taravani Grasakori Masabar. You have to save us. This very fierce forest fire is swallowing us. And they told him, Ataeva Sudustara Davanalo Hoite Nija Bandhu Gane Raksha Koroho Twarite. We're all your bandhus. We're your family members. We're your friends. So you have to save us from this forest fire. Mityurupavani hoite kicha nahi bhai. We're not afraid of death. Mityarup, we're not afraid of that. Kicha nahi bhai. But tomara charani jaina vicheda nahoy. We're afraid to be separated from you. Why are they praying for protection from Krishna? The Brijbasis, they don't. Mother Yashoda, she just wants to protect Krishna. She's praying to Lord Narayan. But why are they praying to Krishna? Because they're saying, Krishna, if you don't protect us, then people will criticize you. We're your friends. So this is unbearable for us. If someone criticizes you or if we're separated from you, we can't tolerate that. And so this is the nature of this kind of forest fire. This is the nature of the fires of sectarianism which are burning in America today and which are beginning to burn all over the world. And these fires go on when people see different causes for their problems. And they think that it's the blacks, or they think it's the police, or they think it's the American government, or the Chinese government, or the Indian government, or the CIA, or the KGB, or the GBC, or maybe they think it's Dave Madhav's fault, I don't know. But everybody's blaming somebody else. And the whole world is on fire. And people can't get along. And in this situation, people become separated. And they become separated from Krishna. This is a real cause of the forest fire. So then Krishna, he told them, again, this is from Vrindavan Lilamrita, when Krishna saw the distressed faces of the Brijbasis, the distressed look on their faces, then he called out to them. He said, Saba nirodila chinta na koriha mane, ki korite pariyagni, asya ekwani. He said, all of you, don't be afraid. He said, this fire can't do anything here. We should understand this fire can't do anything here. It can't do anything to the devotees. And so in the beginning of our discussion, we were reading from Srila Prabhupada. I'd like to read something from him again, just to underscore it. Prabhupada said, instead of contemplating what will happen to this world, you should chant Hare Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. Don't consider what will happen to this world. Nature will take care of it. You should utilize whatever time you have in your possession. Go back home, back to Godhead. Oil your own machine instead of thinking what will happen elsewhere. These things will happen because people will go on with their rascal civilization. The natural consequences will be there. But better you take advantage of whatever time you've got, become fully Krishna conscious, and go back home. So there's a great fire going on. There's a fire right now going on in America. There's fires going on in the whole world in the form of conflicts, in the form of conflict between America and China, America and Russia, between India and China, India and Pakistan, and so many different countries. And the way things look, astrologers are saying, and it really looks like there's going to be more and more fires. But these fires don't affect the devotees. As long as we don't take one side or the other, as Prabhupada says, a devotee never takes the part of a particular party. Therefore, he's carefree. He can actually see good things even in Mr. Trump. Even in him. He can see some good things there. He can see some good things in everybody. That's the nature of a devotee. And a devotee doesn't feel like, oh, I'm an American, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. If he feels like that, he's going to be in so much anxiety. And such a devotee will become dependent on the course of activities in the world. And bayam vitya binivesita shat. He'll develop great fear. He'll develop this duality. And he'll start saying, these people are my friends, these people are my enemies. And this thing goes, it's such a deep-rooted thing, it even goes on for the devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement. And we start thinking that oh, Christians are bad, because I've met some born-again Christians who are complete nonsense, so all Christians are bad. Or Muslims are terrible, because some Muslims have done jihad and killed people and things, so I hate Muslims. And Gaudiya Mat devotees are all bad, because there was some Gaudiya Mat devotee came to our temple and he said bad things about some of the ISKCON gurus. Or the Babajis are bad. They're really bad because they said something bad about Srila Prabhupada. Or the Democrats or the Republicans or this or that or the other. But a devotee doesn't see like that. That's the mentality of a materialistic person. A devotee, he sees some distinguishing characteristics. In the second forest fire, it's described that the Krishna was taking care of some of the cows. And some of those cows, they wandered away. And the boys became full of anxiety what to do. And they wanted to go out and search for them. And suddenly a terrible fire surrounded all the cows and the boys. And there was no hope. They were all going to die. They were going to be separated from Krishna. Because this is what the forest fire represents. It represents becoming separated from devotees and thereby becoming separated from Krishna. It represents becoming sectarian and making distinguishing divisions between people. And Krishna at that time, he told the cowherd boys that I want all of you to lay down on the ground and close your eyes. This is what Krishna's telling them when there's a terrible fire going on. Is that good advice? It's not good advice. Some say it's completely crazy advice. There's a terrible fire, I'm going to get burned alive, and you're just telling me to lay down on the ground and close my eyes. Well, maybe if I lay down on the ground, the smoke won't get me so much, but that's not going to solve the problem. The boys, they had complete faith in Krishna. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his Artha Darshini commentary, he says that the boys were thinking, oh, maybe Krishna's going to do some magic. Maybe Krishna knows some mantra or something. Because when you chant mantras, it's supposed to be something secret. So we can't see that. So Krishna's going to do something like that. But in some of the Brijbasi kirtans of Vrindavan, they give another explanation of why Krishna was telling the boys to cover their eyes. Because Krishna thought to himself that previously, when some years ago with the boys, I was eating mati. I was eating the dust of Vrindavan. And the boys went and complained to my mother, and I got in big trouble about that. So if I got in trouble for eating dirt, what's going to happen now if they go and tell Mata that I was eating fire? Then I'm going to really get in big trouble. So for that reason, Krishna had them cover their eyes. And then Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Vaishnava Toshini says a very striking thing. He says that Krishna took that fire, and by the potency of Yoga Maya, that fire became a drop of nectar. And Krishna drank that drop of nectar. And so I was contemplating the purport of that based on the teachings of Thakur Bhaktivinode and what he's saying about how the forest fire represents sectarianism, along with the natural understanding that although sectarianism is bad, is a great fault, to be faithful to our friends, to be faithful to the mission of our Gurudev, that's a good quality. But it looks the same as sectarianism. Sometimes someone may come to us and say, Prabhuji, why don't you come with me? I'm going to go and hear Krishna Katha from so many places. But Srila Prabhupada, when he found out some years ago that in Vrindavan, some of the devotees were going outside the Krishna Balaram Mandir to hear Krishna Katha from other persons who sounded very, very elevated, Srila Prabhupada was upset about that. He said, no one should go outside. And he said, if the Krishna Katha is not good enough here in our Krishna Balaram Mandir, then if somebody's feeling like that, then they should speak Krishna Katha. Because it's important we have a family. But as a family, as devotees, it doesn't mean that we should hate people. If we're full of hatred, if we're full of sectarianism, then how can we progress in bhakti? There's a beautiful letter Srila Prabhupada wrote to, let's see if I have it here, to the Governor General of Canada. It's my favorite letter that I always read out. Do I have it here? Yeah, I do have it here. Okay, so let's see. Is Luke present in this meeting right now? Luke, are you there? Maybe not. Okay, hey, read. Oh, there's Luke. Hi, Krishna. Luke, nice to see you. So why don't you read his? The letter to Roland Michener. Actually, a funny thing, a little footnote before we read this. Some years ago, I was here in Puri. I was reading this as part of our katha, and afterwards, one devotee came to me and said, I grew up and I was friends with Ronald Michener's family, who Prabhupada wrote this letter to, and later this guy became a devotee. Anyway, Luke, go ahead and read. Whoops.
Business is a non-lucrative organization whose purpose is to promote the well-being of human society by drawing its attention to God. We are a non-sectarian society, and our members include people from Christian, Jewish, and Muslim, as well as Hindu faiths. The aim of ISKCON is not to found a new religious sect, but to invoke the living entity's dormant love of God, and thus provide the human society of all faiths with a common platform of clear theistic knowledge and practice. Members of ISKCON may retain their own respective religious faiths, as ISKCON is meant to establish a clear, practical, common formulation of the common ideal of all theists, and to defeat the unnecessary dogmatic wranglings that now divide and invalidate the theistic camp. This common ideal of theism is to develop love of God.
I found it very interesting of Prabhupada saying that to defeat the unnecessary, dogmatic wranglings, and then what's the result of unnecessary dogmatic quarrel, that's what he's saying. You have division and invalidation. It divides the theistic camp and it invalidates the theistic camp. And this is exactly what's going on in America, isn't it? You have some Christian people who are very dogmatic and they're unnecessarily wanting to quarrel with other people, and it invalidates their own arguments. So many people become atheists because of that. So a very fascinating thing in the second forest fire, when Krishna took that forest fire in his hand, Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Vaishnava Toshini says it became a drop of nectar, and Krishna drank it, and Krishna found it to be very cooling and very satisfying. And so reading that, I thought to myself, this is the nature of sanghas. A sangha can be sectarian, and if a sangha is hateful to other people, if a sangha is sectarian, if a sangha develops unnecessary quarrel with other people and they become very dogmatic, then it's just going to divide and invalidate the theistic camp. But when we're faithful to our Guru Janas, when we have a sangha, when we have a community like the devotees in Ypsilanti have, a very beautiful community, and there's some commitment in that community, there's common unity. Community means commitment and unity. Well, there's some commitment there. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to become a valuable part of the community. I'm going to tolerate the problems and things that go on. I'm going to contribute to this. Then that same thing, which looks like sectarianism, and which someone may come to you and say, well, why don't you come to our program over here? We're teaching something about Sai Baba, or we're teaching about this and that, and you guys are so close-minded. Why don't you come and hear in an open-minded way? It looks like you're sectarian, and sometimes the devotees even feel uncomfortable. Well, really, I don't want to go to your program. I'm sorry. And then you feel like you're a sectarian person, but it's not necessarily sectarian. Bhaktivinode Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, in one commentary in the 11th canto, he says, the nature of a Kanishta Adhikari is that he doesn't appreciate the Uttama Adhikari. And the Kanishta Adhikari criticizes the Madhyam because the Madhyam makes differences. He distinguishes between different groups and who he's going to associate with and who he's not going to associate with. The Kanishta Adhikari is very sentimental, and he thinks everybody should be like the Uttam and just love everybody and just embrace everybody, which is one of the faults sometimes people point out in the liberal movement today. It's just completely sentimental. So it's not that we should just think everybody is very good. We need to be faithful. We need to be nishta to our Guru Janas and to the practice that we have before us. But the result of this, if it's really Krishna consciousness nishta, will be not sectarianism, but it'll be open-mindedness. The result will be that you'll learn to love everybody and you'll learn to appreciate everyone. And you won't, as Prabhupada writes in his purport to this verse of Bhagavad Gita we're reading, you won't take the part of a particular party. And therefore you'll be carefree. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean, well, a devotee never takes a part of a particular party, therefore he's carefree? So does it mean that then I don't take the part of ISKCON? I don't take the part of the Harmony Collective? That you may see that's a particular party. Well, it's a little more subtle than that. A devotee has a sangha that he belongs to. A devotee has his Gurudev. A devotee has friends. Parasparanukathanam bhavanam bhagavadyasa. A devotee hears and chants with devotees. They have exchanges. But they don't identify that I am ISKCON. Just because I'm part of the Harmony Collective, that means I am the Harmony Collective. And anybody who's in the Detroit temple, I don't like them because they haven't appreciated the glories of the devotees in Ypsilanti. That's ridiculous. But rather, the devotee thinks, this is my sangha, this is my community, and I love the devotees here, and I want to contribute to them. And that love comes, Hari Lila Sutokchara, Pareshi Sutatantoya, Karya Pritistavahara Yata Bhakta Nashati. That love naturally comes, it naturally arises. It's not an artificial imposition of the mind. It's not an artificial adjustment where things, I'm just going to become faithful, I'm going to do this thing. But it becomes natural when we hear and chant together, when we take shelter of Krishna together. And this is the only thing. Krishna is the only thing that can put out these forest fires. Krishna is the only thing. Krishna consciousness is the only solution that can put out these forest fires in America today. And as far as I can see, it's just going to get worse. I have zero faith in what Mr. Trump is saying to solve the problem. I have zero faith in what the Democrats are saying is going to solve the problem. I don't think the National Guard is going to solve the problem. And I don't think Black Lives Matter is going to solve the problem, or anybody else, because they're all belonging to a particular party. They all have some sectarianism. They all have hatred. to the other persons. But a Vaishnava is someone who can see good in everyone. And because he's so intoxicated with the holy name, he's so peaceful, he's so happy. He can be friends with everyone. And therefore, Krishna consciousness, as Srila Prabhupada wrote in this letter to Ronald Michener, it's a really non-sectarian society. He says we have, in our society, we have members who are Christian, who are Jewish and Muslim and Hindu, and they can keep their own particular religious faith, and they can still be a member of ISKCON. This is really the Harmony Collective. We can create harmony, coming together, and not trying to change people, but just offering something else to them. And maybe you're attached to Buddhism, or maybe you're attached to Judaism, or Islam, or Christianity, whatever it may be. That's perfectly fine. I spoke about these things many, many times, and I know some of you have heard some of the different stories I've told about it, but still, maybe some of you haven't, and I'd like to repeat one or two of them. Krishna Kund and I, before this wonderful lockdown came about, which we're drinking like nectar now, we were traveling all over the world like crazy people and trying to give classes and things. And for several years, we were going to one particular country, which was prominently Islamic. And I can't even say the name of it because we may try to go back there again. And if I say something online about it, then I may have some problems. But that particular country, ISKCON is legal, one temple. To wear a dhoti or a sari is illegal. To keep Srila Prabhupada's books in your home is illegal. But you're allowed to wear a dhoti or sari at the temple. You're allowed to read Prabhupada's books at the temple. But sometimes they raid the homes of the devotees and they confiscate their books. It's a very heavy place. And it's predominantly an Islamic country. And so we were giving classes there, and it's our first time to that country. And I'm an American boy. I'm not used to people like that. And there was one lady who was coming to our katas every day, and she was wearing a burqa. And I was a little confused because I had never seen a lady wearing a burqa coming to the Hare Krishna temple before. And so I asked one of the devotees about it, and they said, yeah, that's Bhakti and such. And she does her namaz 5 times a day, whatever. She bows down toward Mecca and recites her Islamic prayers because she has to, otherwise they'll kill her. But she also chants 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra every day. And what a wonderful thing. But if someone's a neophyte devotee, then they'll want to insist, don't wear that burqa, and you should wear tilak, and you should wear neck beads. And then maybe you won't see her next week because maybe her relatives killed her because she gave up wearing a burqa and things. But ISKCON's not about just wearing a particular dress. We have our Vaishnava tilak because it's purifying for the body. And when we're initiated, we wear that tilak with pride. And it helps to remind people of God. But if we have people who want to join our society who don't want to wear tilak and who come from a Christian, Jewish, Muslim background, that's fine. They don't have to wear that. And people in ISKCON, as Prabhupada says, can keep their own respective religious faiths. So these are just some of the thoughts that I had. I was thinking about our dear friends there in Michigan. And it's scary. It's a scary thing when you hear about all the fires going on in the cities and the riots and things going on. But I had this conviction that the only solution is Krishna consciousness. There's really nothing else. And if we don't take shelter of Krishna right now, if we don't take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam and take shelter of the holy name, we may find ourselves in a very, very difficult situation. And our movement may become compromised. We'll lose strength. So I want to stop there. We've gone for an hour. I want to see maybe some of the devotees have some reflections, some comments or thoughts.
I noticed that, thank you for a wonderful discussion, and I appreciate you acknowledging our effort in Ypsilanti to try to embody this healthy distinction and discernment without becoming sectarian. Certainly we've tried. We have work to do. but it's the mandate from our Guru Janas, our ācāryas. So thank you for helping us see the importance of that today in the talk. I saw that Uma had a comment and a question she wanted to give. So Uma, could you come on?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for, I have 2 questions.
I'm so happy to see you, Nandini. I haven't gotten to see you in a while. Krishna, come over. You should look in the computer also. They won't see you. You can just kind of look from the side. She's not dressed proper and she's really nervous. Now, Mother Uma is wearing a really nice sari. And I don't, can you see them?
Hare Krishna.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So the first question was, you had said, I heard you say that problems go on when people see different causes for their problems.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking that it's actually a very natural tendency to try to blame someone else or something else for any difficulty that we're facing.
Like
even
your
like
husband.
the little,
Like blaming your husband?
yes, that happens all the time. So even like for little things, it's like, so basically, you also said, I really liked what you said, that the business of the devotees is to introspect and be thoughtful. But that's really like the last thing that one does, when something happens. And it's actually hard to do also. It's like so difficult that even when you try, that no, wait, don't freak out, don't get angry, just try to, go a better route, internalize this situation, and it's a really difficult thing. So I was just, I actually just had this experience before the call started, the class started, so it's like fresh for me, that the tendency is to blame or to find the external cause and then find the solution, and it's a very doership mentality that I have, at least. And I'm not sure. I think it just takes time to become introspective and thoughtful. But it's definitely a struggle for me.
I'm sure. I've been hearing Jaguar was telling us that sometimes they go outside your house and they kind of wave at you. And you come to the window and you wave back. I'm sure you're becoming a little more introspective right now. It forces us, isn't it? It forces us right now. But even sometimes devotees, they're going to be looking to blame different things. And there's this conspiracy, and it's the pharmaceutical companies and this and that. And I just tell them, I don't know. And what do I care? What do I care about that? I don't want to blame. For me, I personally become really nervous when I go to the LAX airport. I become nervous when I'm in Venice Beach in California. I become nervous when I'm in downtown New York, and everything looks really good. And there's all beautiful people and beautiful girls and nice food, and life seems that makes me really nervous, because I understand Maya's there, but Maya is so tricky. I can't see her, and everything looks really nice. But with this coronavirus thing, with the situation in America, I maybe I sound very evil to say this, I'm sorry, but I feel happy when I see it, because now Maya's right out in the open. And Krishna's coming and saying, you may die, and your friends may die, and the world is going to hell. And you have to face it. There's no more sweetness and, and little masks and all like that, but you see it right up front. And I just so strongly feel this is Krishna. Krishna wants us to take shelter. He wants us to go deeper right now. I'm sorry, did you have some other question? It was nice comments, thank you.
Yeah, this was more of a comment.
Yeah.
But I thank you for that insight. It's definitely true that this is an interesting time that's helping us introspect. My actual question was that, you gave the example of Prabhupada and the devotees going outside of the Krishna Balaram temple to hear, and Prabhupada didn't like that. And you said that we need a family. But my question was that what exactly does it mean to go outside to hear? What does outside mean?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. And frankly speaking, it's a relative conception. If we think about it, we'll come to the understanding that it's relative. If going outside ISKCON means that I never ever hear from anyone outside of ISKCON, I never ever visit or see any devotees who are not ISKCON devotees, then how do we understand the fact that Srila Prabhupada took his young disciple, Subhagdas Brahmachari, with him to visit his old friend, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj? Prabhupada took some of his disciples sometimes with him. Prabhupada said very favorable things about them. In fact, I've got some nice quotes here, if I can find it, from Srila Prabhupada, where he spoke about his godbrothers. Let me paste this in, Uma. This is a letter to Brahmananda. Why don't you read this? If I can come back to the chat here. Here we go. Even amongst our godbrothers.
Even amongst our godbrothers, we have
Excuse me,
misunderstanding.
Prabhupada's speaking here about his godbrothers.
Okay,
Srila
yeah.
Bhaktisiddhanta.
Even amongst our godbrothers, we have misunderstanding, but none of us is astray from the service of Krishna. My Guru Maharaj ordered us to execute his mission combinedly. Unfortunately, we are now separated, but none of us have stopped preaching Krishna consciousness. Even if there was misunderstanding amongst the godbrothers of my Guru Maharaj, none of them deviated from the transcendental loving service of Krishna. The idea is that provocation and misunderstanding may remain between one man and another, but our staunch faith in Krishna consciousness may not allow any material disruption. Please, therefore, try to be sympathetic with any person, even if they differ. The only qualification we have to scrutinize is if one is acting in Krishna consciousness as far as one is able to do it.
I personally think that what Prabhupada's comments in this letter to Brahmananda, which, bear in mind, was written in 1967 to a very young devotee. I think Prabhupada's comments in this letter perfectly answer your question, perfectly give us a solution, that we shouldn't see any difference amongst the devotees. We should give respect to them. And he says that there may be some provocation and misunderstanding that sometimes comes between us, but if we have staunch faith in Krishna consciousness, then there's no material disruption. But what does that staunch faith in Krishna consciousness mean? It means that I have staunch faith in my Gurudev. It means that I have staunch faith in the Seva Sangha of my Gurudev. And I'm satisfied here. I remember when we first, Krishna Kund and I first started going to Ukraine to give classes, we were invited there by Naranjan Maharaj. And I wanted to get to know the devotees and the yatra and the mood there. And so I asked Naranjan Maharaj a few questions. And some of the questions I asked him, I said, do you have a problem with the Gaudiya Math devotees there? And Maharaj looked a little confused for a moment and thought, and he said, no. And I said, do you have a problem with the Ridviks? And Maharaj, he's like a child. He said, no. And then he told me, he said, we don't ever preach to anybody against anyone. Rather, we just love the devotees. And then there's no problem. They don't go here and there, but they naturally want to stay with us. It's natural that some people, sometimes, they'll come to our temple, our society, and then after some time, maybe they'll become inspired by some other group or some other person. That's okay. We should think this is a very good thing. Now there's somebody who's a little bit part of our Sangha, who's our friend, but now he's part of another Sangha also. So now we have a connection also with this other Sangha. Instead of looking at it in a negative way and feeling, oh, we lost this person belonged to us. The person's not our property. They don't belong to us. But now we should think that, oh, this is my friend, and he's always going to be my friend. And now he's going to some other group. He's inspired and getting inspiration there. I personally want to stay with my Gurudev. And with Srila Prabhupada and Seva Sangha here, I feel this is what's best for bhakti. And my personal observation is, doing research for the last 25 years throughout India, at Radhakund and Navadvip and South India, North India, amongst Babajis and Goswamis and Gaudiya Math devotees, and doing research, trying to find things out for our magazines, I've marked the fact that everybody tells their followers, don't go to other groups. Everybody says that. And it doesn't mean that they're being sectarian. They're saying, don't do that. We give an example I gave a few days ago in class. I wasn't going to mention today, but it may be fresh for some devotees here, that when there's a 3-year-old child, you have your little house, so you have a small fence in your house. You have a little bit of a yard in front. You have a yard in the back anyway. Okay, you have a yard around your house, and you have a 3-year-old child. So the 3-year-old child wants to go outside the fence, but there's a busy street there, and you've got all kinds of crazy people there. So you don't want him to go outside. You say, no, you can't go outside. The child is asking you, why not? But the child can't understand. You're going to tell him, well, there's child molesters, there's Satan worshipers, there's cars that are going to run you over, a big dog will bite you, and this, and it's too complicated for a kid. And maybe he's not going to believe everything you say anyway, right? So you just make it simple. You just tell him, because everybody on the other side of the fence is bad. Okay, I got it. Right? And the 3-year-old kid stands on that side of the fence, and whenever somebody walks by, it's Jai Gore walking by or something, the kid shakes his finger at him and says, you're bad, you're bad. Huh? And Jai Gore just laughs because he understands why the kid was told like that. But if that same child becomes a 35-year-old man, and he still won't go outside the fence because my mommy told me not to, and he's still shaking his finger at everybody on the other side of the fence, what kind of representative is he of his parents? Everybody's going to think this guy is sick. There's some mental illness or something with him. And nobody's going to be inspired by him. When we grow older and mature and really become mature, and it's not such a simple thing to say, then when we're fixed with our Gurudev, we're fixed with our Sangha, then we can love so many different people. If we're not fixed with that, then people tell us, don't go outside the fence because everybody's bad. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, this is a great analogy, actually. Thank you very much for it.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Nice to see you guys.
But I think Jai Gore Prabhu wants to defend himself.
I have no defense. I wanted to make a reflection on something you were saying. I just thought it was a really beautiful statement when you were saying that when basically when someone's not pouring the water of bhajan onto the tree of their life, then the tree becomes dry and it's easily consumed by the fire of sectarianism. And I was thinking, like, the devotees, those who are absorbed in their spiritual life and their bhajan, they don't have like the desire, but they also don't even have the time to like wave their flag and kind of like tell others what they should do or what they think about that. So I just thought that was really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, they're too busy going out in Harinam. They're too busy doing prasadam distribution. They've got something going on, and they're happy with that. And they meet somebody else, and, wow, you're a Vaishnava, that's great. I love you also. Wow, you're a Christian, that's great. They're happy. That's how we used to deal with Christians. I tell this sometimes. When I was selling books years ago in LAX, an airport in Los Angeles, there were a lot of born-again Christians who would come and try to break up your sales. And they were really obnoxious people. And always the same thing would happen. They would walk up to you. It's a very, very rare thing when you're in LAX airport distributing books for someone to walk up to you. Sometimes it happens, maybe once a week or something, but it's a very rare thing. And when a Christian walks up to you, some born-again fanatical Christian, immediately you can see on their face what's going on, because they're nervous. They're coming up to you, and the look on their face is, this is a cult member, and I got to be careful with them. And they come up to you, and they say, have you heard of Jesus, or whatever it is that they want to tell you. And I developed a technique dealing with them, which made my heart very happy, and which was very proactive, which was very positive, it didn't cause me problems. I didn't waste time with them, because what they want to do is they want to argue with you and take your time for hours, and you get so frustrated. They're such an idiot. They won't listen to anything you're saying, and they just waste all your time. So when they come up and they say something about Jesus, I would look at it and say, are you a Christian? And they always do the same thing. They kind of take a step back. I say, really? They say, yes. I say, really? And I would grab them and like give them a hug even, or just touch them and say, it's so good to meet a man of God out here. I can't tell you how nice it is. I've met so many atheists and nasty people. It's so good to meet a man of God. And I just appreciate meeting you so much. And thank you for coming up to me. And let me give you something. And I don't give them a book. I don't even give them prasadam. I just eat edible prasadam. I give them a flower usually or something. And the same thing happened every time I did this. I don't know, probably a dozen or more times. They just get a real stupid look on their face, and they just turn and walk away. And I felt so blissful and happy. And if anybody was watching, they go, wow, those Hare Krishna people, they're really cool, you know? And it was so positive, and I really felt some happiness and love for that person. I didn't waste time arguing with them, being hateful to them. Now, that's not to say that if you have some new person who's innocent and some Christian comes, maybe sometimes you might have to argue with them for the sake of those new devotees. That's a different case. Anyway, nice to see you guys. Bana, is he being okay? All right. We have to check in sometimes.
I have something else, if that's okay.
If Dave Madhav, he's a moderator, I don't know. He's the overseer and the protector.
I suppose we can allow.
There's a really interesting thing he posts also, is that those bound to the Varnashram system by prejudice fail to develop taste for a higher level of bhakti. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could say something about that.
Oh boy, we could write a book about that, couldn't we? Yeah, I that also really strongly touched my heart. I'm trying to find back that spot to see. That was from Bhaktivinode Thakur, I think. Yeah, here it is. Bhaktivinode was saying those who are bound to the Varnashram system by prejudice also fail to develop a taste for a higher level of bhakti. So we want to practice Daivi Varnashram. I was struck recently, your Guru Maharaj came out, I was watching one of the videos, maybe you saw this, and he was requesting the devotees to start doing some gardening, to start becoming more self-sufficient, which is a big part of Varnashram Dharma, as Prabhupada saw it. But there's another attitude of Varnashram, someone's tied to that, they feel like I have to do it, and it's because of prejudice, they can't get a higher taste, a taste for higher bhakti. They don't appreciate higher Vaishnavas. In fact, they may criticize higher Vaishnavas. They may say, you know, that woman, she doesn't have her head covered. There's a Zoom conversation going on and she doesn't have her head covered and she's sitting on the wrong side of her husband. Oh my God, she should be on his left side and she's on her right side. They'll say this thing or that thing. And they can't appreciate maybe that lady devotee is actually a very, very elevated personality. And if you didn't have that attachment to this prejudice of Varnashram, your conception of Varnashram, then you might get some good association. You might hear something nice from Queen Kunti or from the gopis of Vrindavan or some wonderful Vaishnavi in Prabhupada's society. And there's so many things we could say about that. It's a very, very important point. I find it very important too that Prabhupada's saying they'll fail to develop a taste for a higher level of bhakti. This morning we were reading from Nectar Devotion in our discussion, and Prabhupada was saying there that if someone is attached to getting respect and getting some fame or something, either through material means or through bhakti, then they won't get a higher taste for bhakti. So that comes because there's some sectarianism. That sectarian comes in the form that I'm doing is bhakti, but I'm doing it so that I'll become famous, so that I'll get something out of it. Is that something, Jaguar?
Yes, Roo, thank you. I was thinking that like the mind tends to judge others who aren't they don't have the same values as you do, and it's hard to avoid. Someone's just a little bit different. They're also practicing bhakti, but they're doing it in a little different way. It's like
it's going on in our society. It's also going on in America. The country of America is based on some good principles of equality for everyone. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That's a very beautiful conception in America. And because that beautiful philosophical understanding is there, it's become a very powerful country. But what's going on today, there's so much hatred. And people are saying, oh, the liberals, they're so stupid, and they have this idea, or the Trumparians, or whatever they want to call them, those Trump followers, those guys are a bunch of idiots, and they're all carrying a bunch of guns and doing this and that. And no one tries to understand the other person because they're attached to their particular prejudice. Devotees have to rise above that, otherwise we won't be able to preach. You may be able to go and get some friends amongst the liberals who are mostly vegetarian, or if you go and preach to some of the conservatives and you tell them we also don't believe in abortion and whatever, we believe in God, you may get some followers there. But if you just side with one of those groups, you're not going to be able to make much of an impact, and you won't be able to solve the problem that's going on in the world today, the fires that are going on. Okay? Back to our host, Dave Madhav.
Yeah, to that point, Prabhu, it's a nice segue for something I wanted to ask about. If we look at Srila Prabhupada's example, and throughout his teachings, if you just type in the word Nixon in the database, you get like 500 returns. And most of them are not from the conversation he had with Miss Nixon, the report. They're his references to President Nixon and the various social elements related to that presidency here in America. And so it seems Srila Prabhupada had a sensitivity to speaking to the time, place, and circumstance to help people recognize Krishna conscious principles. And a comment is that I see in general in society today this kind of head in the sand mentality, or head in the clouds, whatever you want to call it, where the devotees avoid those kind of down-to-earth conversations in the name of Krishna consciousness. So related to what you're sharing today, where the real solution is ultimately hearing and chanting, how do we synthesize that with the concerns of everyday people and helping them recognize that that's not an escape, that's an actual solution?
Well, first of all, it's not, we should be real. Our conversations should be real with people. And we can, as devotees, we can be artificial, and we can just present, everybody, we should just all be purely Krishna conscious. But really, how many of us are really purely Vedic and purely Krishna conscious? I mean, in all Lipsilanti, Dave Madhav may be the only one who's purely Vedic. I'm
not sure which Veda you're reading from.
But you have a blue shirt on. Oh my God, I'm going to lose faith. So we have to be real. And even amongst devotees, we have devotee friends. Sometimes we just can't figure each other out, even as devotees. I have friends. I have one friend. I don't want to take sides of these things. It's hard. But I have one friend who actually propagates that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent Mr. Trump. And I have a hard time with that personally. But I also should respect that's his strong feeling. And he has a feeling about that. And does it mean that I can't have a conversation with him? Does it mean that he can no longer be my friend? That's terrible. Why can't I have a discussion? But if I keep things on a Krishna conscious level and I'm detached and I understand that I let him have his right. He's attached to this person. That's fine. That's his right. He has a right to that. I should give him that respect. And then maybe I also have a different kind of opinion. My mother would roll over in her grave if she thought that I was a follower of that personality. But that's myself. Somebody else will be in a different kind of way. So we should respect him. And the nature of Krishna consciousness, we can have unity and diversity. But if we're not Krishna conscious, then we can't tolerate diversity. And then we don't have unity. And even in our own movement. And then we fail as a society. It's natural. We're going to have some people who are conservative and some people who are liberal, and the conservatives have good things to say and the liberal people have good things to say. But I really just hope that devotees can come to a little higher point when maybe they have a conservative nature or a prominently liberal nature, but they don't identify themselves as a part of a particular political party. And they can see good in everybody. And if we can go and actually teach that, that's needed so badly today. So badly today. My God. I don't know if that's any help for you. You have any other further thoughts about that?
It's reminding me of an experience we had a few years ago. We were doing Harinam a few times a week in Ann Arbor. And on Fridays, this group of sympathizers with the nation of Syria were having a kind of protest every Friday on that corner. And after 2 or 3 weeks, they were getting upset with us that we weren't joining them. They're, come join us, come join us. And we were feeling, well, we were here first. We've been protesting your problem and everybody else's problem for the last 2-3 years on this street corner. You come join us. And we had a few of their people started to float over to our side, especially the children. Towards the end of it, we had a few of their moms also came over and started shaking our shakers instead of waving their banner. It was reminding me of that.
It's more fun. Yeah. Krishna consciousness should be joyfully performed. And when there's anger and hatred toward other people, how can that be joyful? And why not? If tomorrow morning the devotees go to the Harmony Collective, maybe you guys still aren't having meetings yet, are you?
No, not formally. No.
Okay, but if you're allowed to all go together, and you go there and you find there's a new devotee there, and he's dressed kind of a little formally, and he has kind of a big body, and he looks kind of familiar. And oh my God, it's actually Mr. Trump. He came to the Harmony Collective, and there he is. What do you do with that? Do you hate him, or do you want to just politicize him and love him for something? We should just chant Hare Krishna with him, and see everybody as a spirit soul. And then what to speak of devotees? I did some research what Prabhupada said about voting some years ago, and I found some interesting things. Prabhupada did not tell the devotees not to vote. In fact, he was directly asked that question several times by newspaper reporters, and Prabhupada told them that we don't tell our members to vote or not vote. That's their own individual desire. But Prabhupada wrote to devotees also, and he said, we don't want to vote for someone unless they're a Krishna conscious person. If they're a Krishna conscious person, then they can. But in general, Prabhupada said things several times that we leave that up to the individual person. And so, as Prabhupada wrote in that letter to Ronald Michener, that we can have, someone can be a Muslim, they can be a Christian, they can be a Jew, and be a member of the Krishna conscious movement. It means they can probably also be a Republican, maybe even a Tea Party member, and maybe even be a part of the Harmony Collective, or they can be, whatever political party. But we can still love them, and that's the greatness. But if we can't love them, there's something really wrong, isn't it?
Yes. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, we're at the hour-and-a-half mark.
Okay.
Are there any other comments or questions? This has been a wonderful discussion from you, Madhavananda Prabhu. And thank you. As usual, you bring so many quotes from our ācāryas, and I appreciate you also for relating it to the present day and the situation that we see in front of us. It's easy to think that somehow Krishna is not there, or these lessons are for ancient times, but we need something more relevant and relatable to understand what to do today. And that's Maya's trick, is the idea that somehow the illusion was different 5,000 or 5 million years ago than it is in front of us right now. So thank you for helping us remember the truth of the Sat, the eternal knowledge. I don't see any other comments or questions. So
well, let me finish with a little comment then. I recently watched a non-devotee video. Oh my God, he said so. It was somebody named Mr. Rogers. We have Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. And in the first 40 seconds of this interview, he said some of the most profound, actually, I'll paste in a link to this interview right now. You just watch the first 40 seconds. It's YouTube. You should copy this before we finish our Zoom discussion, because otherwise it'll disappear. Just watch the first 40 seconds. what he says is a very, very profound thing. He says that so often in our society, people are attached to information rather than reflection. People. Oops. What's going on? Was that you? I don't know. Anyway, he said that we have we're attached to noise, and we can't be silent. And I thought silence is not such a favorable thing in Krishna consciousness, but silence means that we should be introspective. We should have time to think about something. And he was telling this other television interviewer that in our business, we should be promoting introspection. And I thought, wow, this is what devotees should be doing also. We should be promoting introspection. Anyway, that's my last comment. Thank you very much, Dave Madhabu, and thank you very much for your wonderful community and all the devotees there. It's so nice to see Uma and Nandini and Jaigor and Banabiharani and all the beautiful devotees here. Thank you very much for giving us a chance to share
For
something.
continuing to encourage us, Prabhu. It's so sometimes you need a situation like COVID to realize the opportunities right in front of you. So to have you right in front of us isn't as hard as we thought it was. So thank you for being with us today. Mother Krishna Kun, thank you so much. We know you're there also, and we have your blessings and prayers. So please continue to think of us, and we hope to bring you back again soon, Prabhu.
And Reed is there also. Dave Madhabu should watch Reed. Don't let him climb trees and steal coconuts.
Yeah, he's a tough one to find.
Hare Krishna, Reed. Nice to see you. We miss you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, devotees. We'll, next week, we'll have a similar Sangha with His Grace Hari Parshad Prabhu, and then the following week with Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. So same time, 9 a.m., and the same link. Hare Krishna.
Gauranga.
That book is really deep person. It is the way how he's speaking, how he's thinking.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So thank you all very much. I'm sorry, this was for the devotees in Ypsilanti. Now I'm speaking to devotees here on Facebook. And very nice comment from Ramana Sukha Prabhu. Yes, and don't forget that Mr. Trump did direct service to Srila Prabhupada. Yes, it's not such a cut and dry thing. Thank you all very much. Donna Kelly Mataji, nice to see you. And Ilona Pinto, Hare Krishna. Donna Kelly, it's also funny that people are wearing masks, but with Mayagan missing, the masks are off. Yeah, that is a little funny, isn't it? Nice to see everybody. And Len, Hare Krishna, nice to see you again. Dear friends, Hare Krishna.